thank you guys for tuning in to another Jock Talk podcast show. Matt again with Brock for you. How we doing, Brock?
I'm trying to stay dry over here.
Yeah, I'm wreaking havoc on the East Coast from everything I've heard.
Yeah, you are. You're really destroying some things, but on the plus side, I got out of work early.
There you go.
And don't have to work tomorrow. So
there you go.
I guess that's all right.
Nice. Yeah, I know it's taking its toll on the sports world already. I know LSU, Florida have already canceled their game.
Yeah.
I know I believe it's Georgia, South Carolina, moved their game from Sunday to Saturday. I know it's another SEC matchup or ACC matchup that postponed their game to Sunday. I know in the NFL they're talking about possibly moving the games up or moving them back later in the day. So definitely taking its toll.
Another one, Miami and Florida State. They do plan on playing it at their scheduled time. Miami didn't get hit as much as other parts of Florida, so they might be all right to play on Saturday at their normal time.
Right. All right, but before we hit on any kind of football, we're actually going to start off with baseball today. Doesn't look like any of these places are going to have to worry about being hit at all. Maybe Washington, D.C. might get a little bit of the rain.
Yeah, maybe.
Pushed upwards, but nothing enough to cancel a game or anything like that. But pretty good, actually really good start to the baseball playoffs. We had a walk-off home run in the AL wild card game. And then we had a pitching gem in the NL wild card game. I don't know if you got to watch either of those games. I watched just about all of the NL game, tweeting along with it. Madison Bumgarner versus Noah Syndergaard was absolutely a ridiculous pitching matchup. So for as much grief as baseball has gotten about the playoff, where these teams work so hard for 162 games to leave it up to a one game and you're out or one game and you're in situation. I think the ratings and fans of baseball probably are reflecting that MLB is making the right decision with that. But we mentioned the wild card walk-off in the AL. That was obviously Toronto. They're off to a hot start against Texas. I believe their game just finished up, or is finishing up now, against Texas, and it looks like Toronto is going to be taking a 2-0 lead in that series. I know you got to watch parts or most of the Toronto-Texas game from today. What are your thoughts on today's game and then the series in general, especially after a 2-0 lead for Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, it all started after Edwin Encarnacion hit that 3-run home run in the wild card game. They carried that momentum with their bats all the way into this series so far. In the first two games, you look at it, every single batter up and down that lineup is hitting the ball and hitting the ball hard. I believe they hit four home runs yesterday. So that's 8 home runs in 2 games from, I think, 6 different players. So that being said, they're also getting great pitching out of their starters. Marco Estrada threw a gem today for most of the game.
Former Brewers great, shout out.
For most of the game, the bullpen gave up a couple late runs. The final of that game was 5-3. Toronto won. I think Toronto is a very dangerous team, even though they are the last team to make it in for the AL. Their bats are undeniable. They are going to hit, and if their pitching can pitch like these last 2 games, they could contend for that to go to the World Series for the AL, because based off their bats, they can hit anybody, and if they get hot, they're a crazy team. They're a fun team to watch if you like offense.
Yeah, they have have battered around two very good starting pitchers. Cole Hamels,
Mhm.
very good this season. He's always a really good playoff pitcher, even back to his Philadelphia days when they were good. And then Yu Darvish, he was injured for a lot of this year, but he came back strong. Always a high strikeout guy. I believe I know both games they got 5+ earned runs off of both of those starters. You mentioned Marco Estrada. He had a shutout going into the ninth yesterday. Jay Happ, who was a 20-game winner this year, another former Philadelphia Philly, obviously for a different team, showing up strong. And you mentioned it, home runs today from Ezequiel Carrera, Edwin Encarnacion, Tulo, and Kevin Pillar. So 4 different guys today, having a big impact. I think the one issue that we've seen from Toronto, at least in today's game, from their bullpen, they actually brought in Francisco Liriano, who can be a bullpen arm, but mostly a starter. Gave up 2 runs in the 8th inning, so obviously they had a comfortable-ish lead at that point. But I think that if there's anything that Toronto needs to watch out for, they need to watch out for their bullpen. Obviously, their starters have been really good so far this series, and then they also need to watch out for first pitch swings or early pitch swings. So, what I mean by that is the first inning. And I know it's just a small sample size. I believe the first 2 guys, there were 3 pitches and there were 2 outs. That's especially in the postseason, you got to be a little bit more patient.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're a team that likes to swing the bat, hit the ball out of the park, but they need to watch out, or every team needs to watch out for that, is getting outs early. You look at the wild card game with the Giants. Madison Bumgarner had 21 pitches through 3 innings only. So I think that's a key, not only in this series but in the playoffs in general, is make people work. You got to make the starting pitchers work. But looking forward to the rest of the series, the Blue Jays have the possible Rookie of the Year, Aaron Sanchez, going tomorrow. They have a 2-0 lead with by far Texas's two best pitchers gone. How do you see this series finishing out? Does Texas make it a series? Does Texas come back and win it? I'll give you. Actually, you go ahead, and I'll give my comments after that.
Based on these first 2 games, I don't see Texas coming back. Texas has gotten the hits. They just haven't put them together at the right time, or driving in the runs. They look a little scared not scared, but tentative at the plate, being overcautious, and then having to swing at pitches that are out of the zone just to try to stay alive. It's not the same Texas team that we saw early in the season or middle of the season, which was attacking the ball and being aggressive on the base paths and in the box. They just look like they're kind of just laying back. They get in a hole and they're not as aggressive. I think Texas will take 1 game, but I do have Toronto winning this series, especially going up 2-0 and then taking it back home, which is always a tough place to play. I've always said that when you go to someone else's house, it's hard to win, and Toronto did that twice already in Texas. So they've proven they can win on the road. If they can protect their home field, I don't see them having a problem with Texas.
Yeah, you mentioned going on the road. Obviously, if you can ever steal a road game, it's a huge win. I think that Toronto was probably best off. Their best chance to make a run in these playoffs was obviously winning the wild card, but then going to Texas. Texas, it was 90 degrees and humid yesterday. There's nothing that the Toronto Blue Jays could have asked for more than a hot day where the ball is just going to jump out of the park. I know Texas is a hitter's hitter-friendly field anyways. But with Josh Donaldson having almost 40 home runs, and then obviously you have Bautista and Encarnacion having over 40 each, I think that being in Texas was definitely not an advantage. Obviously, being on the road all the way in Texas, but better than being in Cleveland or in Boston where it's maybe 70 degrees.
Yeah,
I agree. Obviously, I think Texas comes back and makes it a series. I do think Toronto finishes them off in 4. I think Toronto
in 4.
In 4. It's a 5-game in the ALDS. Best of 5 only.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that. ALD.
I did earlier as well. I had to Google it to wonder why all of the starting pitchers weren't going around in their rotations. But something new during today's show. Normally we save the What If Sports Game of the Week towards the end of the show, and normally it's just one game. However, we ran a simulation of the entire playoffs. Something I'm super excited about. We went through and projected starting pitchers, adjusting lineups based on facing lefties for how these teams have adjusted throughout the season. So simulated over 50 games. Some of them we ran more than twice just to even it out, or each of them, we ran at least 2 times just to make sure that it wasn't a fluke. We made sure to switch the home field advantage and all that. So the What If Sports Game of the Week is actually the What If Sports Playoff Tournament of the Week, I guess you could call it. They agree. They had Toronto winning 3-1. This series they had them taking it 3-1 behind great pitching. In no game they had them giving up. They only had them giving up 7 runs through the 4 games that we simulated. So that was before Toronto even took that 2-0 lead. But the simulation at the What If Sports agrees. Toronto takes this series 3-1. Let's stick with the AL. Let's move on to Cleveland and the Red Sox. I know we both agreed. If you guys listened to our last baseball podcast, Brock and I both had the Red Sox winning the World Series. That game, I believe, is just getting underway. Yep, just got the update. The Indians have a 1-0 lead in the bottom of the second. I gave it away. So we both agreed that Boston is going to win this series. What are the keys for you in this series?
Well, it's clearly to calm down the bats of Cleveland. We already seen them hit like back-to-back home runs and 3 home runs in an inning last game. But I think the main thing for Boston to win this series is their pitching has to be consistent. We've seen it throughout this year that Boston's pitching starts struggling. Their offense seems to start struggling. We kind of seen it last game when Porcello gave up a few home runs. They got down, and their bats didn't come alive. They got a couple spotty hits here and there. But they need to have that consistent pitching throughout, from starters to all the way through their closer, which they have had at times where we see them go on those 8-game win streaks and whatnot. I think you already said that Cleveland's already up 1-0, so David Price must not be doing very good. And we all know David Price has struggled mightily throughout his career in the playoffs.
Yeah, when he's on, but when he's off, he gets bad.
Yeah, especially in the playoffs. I don't know what it is. He is a good pitcher. He's very consistent for the most part throughout the whole season. Yes, he has his ups and downs. That's a pitcher. That's major leagues. We get it. But it's the playoffs where he just struggles. And
quick update. Lonnie Chisenhall, 3-run home run. Cleveland is up 4-0 in the bottom of the second.
There it is. See, exactly. That's exactly what I was saying. David Price clearly struggling already in the second inning. and it could get ugly for Boston.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Boston they strung together a couple of hits yesterday. You mentioned that Boston's pitching needs to cool the bats of the Indians. I think it's the same way the other way. I think Cleveland needs to continue to keep a high powered or high potentially powered offense of the Boston Red Sox. Keep them from those extra base hits.
Mhm.
I mean, when you look at their lineup, you go one through six, and it's the guys either they can hit the long ball or they have speed to stretch a single into a double into a triple. So, um, I think I think Boston probably has the better pitching, but if you on paper at least, Boston should or Cleveland has better pitching. Boston should have better offense. Um, on a confidence scale of 1 to 10, I know, like I said, we have Boston winning this series. Did have Boston winning this series. Where's your confidence that Boston is still going to take this series on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, they get past these first two games. They have the bats. They have the decent enough pitching. If Cleveland ends up winning this game, it's going to be really tough to have a lot of confidence in this game. I would probably put it at a 5 because it would be a lot lower than that if Carlos Carrasco and Danny Salazar were both pitching in this series. I would have almost zero confidence
Right.
if those two are pitching the next two games, especially if they go down 0-2, because those two pitchers are lights out when they need to be. And I I think this Cleveland team, even though we both picked them to win the World Series, they are very competitive, and I think they have the weight of the city on their shoulders again. Even though LeBron and the Cavs already won a championship for Cleveland, I think they want it.
Yeah.
They want to have a parade. So I think they have the drive to do it. If Cleveland wins this series, they could almost you could argue that they could write their ticket to the World Series, but they would also have to get past a Toronto or a Ranger team, which is no easy task. The playoffs have a lot of good teams this year, so it's going to be interesting to watch whatever matchup shows up.
Yeah, I agree. Depending on the outcome of this game, I'm still confident. I'm gonna go with an 8. I'm still confident that the Red Sox are gonna take it. That could just be me not wanting to be wrong, so I'm sticking with my pick. The What If Sports simulation did have the Indians winning this game and jumping out to a 2-0 lead, but they do have Boston winning the next two, but with ultimately Cleveland pitching a shutout in Game 5, winning 5-0 back at home to advance to ALCS. So the What If Sports simulation does have the Cleveland Indians taking this series. So that means we would have a Cleveland Toronto ALCS matchup. Moving to, let's save the Cubs for last. Let's go to,
Of course.
Let's go to the nation's capital. Let's go to Washington D.C. This series has not gotten underway yet. Probably the best pitching matchup out of these first couple of games of the playoffs, with Max Scherzer taking on Clayton Kershaw. I think this is going to be a really good series. I'm gonna start off with, I think whichever team wins Game 1 takes the series.
That's exactly what I had.
I don't know who I have winning Game 1 quite yet. I think I'm probably leaning a little bit towards I don't know. I'm probably leaning a little bit towards the Dodgers. I think they have a little bit of a stronger bullpen with Kenley Jansen. He's been really good all year. I think they have a little bit more of a firepower. I think Bryce Harper has been struggling a little bit this year. Corey Seager for the Dodgers is absolutely the real deal at shortstop. So I think, again, it's up to who wins Game 1 will take the series, and I think that's going to be the Dodgers for me.
Yeah, I like I said, I have exactly the same thing. Whoever wins Game 1 wins the series, and I also have the Dodgers winning that. If you look at both these teams, they both struggled throughout the playoffs as of late. They get the playoffs, they make an appearance, and they're out. They get to face each other and then have a chance to move on to the NLCS, which could be a big series in itself. The Dodgers, I think, like you said, have a little more firepower on offense, and I think hit the ball better. Outside of Scherzer, the Nationals have not had a consistent second or even rest of the rotation. Their hitting hasn't been there all year. So that's why I think the Dodgers will take this game. Like you said, after Game 1, I think it's all up in the air who wins. And this is going to be I want to see the best series of the playoffs, but it's going to be one of the most intriguing from Game 1 to Game 5.
Yeah, the most competitive. I think the other thing, Washington's been dealing with injuries. Strasburg not on the NLDS roster. Wilson Ramos, great catcher for the Nationals. I believe tore his ACL in the last week of the regular season. So the What If Sports simulation actually has a Dodgers sweep.
Wow.
Spoiler alert, that is the only sweep predicted in the entire playoff. So they have the clinching game. They have the Dodgers winning 16-0. It was 16-0, and then 8-1 were the two simulations. So on average, 12-1 over the Nationals.
Yikes.
Yeah, I think definitely going to be a disappointment for the Nationals with all the hype, especially surrounding Bryce Harper and a healthy pitching staff. But the other NLDS game, the best team in baseball for the entire year takes on the best team from baseball in the first half. The Giants were actually the best team record-wise in all of the NL at least before the All-Star break. I believe after the All-Star break they were like 12 games under 500. They had to win their last 4 even to get to the wild card game. For me, I don't see this series being close. I know both teams have really, really good pitchers, but you saw it during the wild card game. The San Francisco Giants, when they're off offensively, they're not good. They struggle with extra base hits. They struggle outside of Denard Span and possibly Angel Pagan with stealing bases and advancing the runner. They probably have the best pitcher in all of baseball, arguably, in Madison Bumgarner. But I don't think that the one pitcher in Madison Bumgarner, because Samardzija struggled. Matt Moore was a trade deadline acquisition. He's struggled. I don't think that they can contain the firepower, both from a pitching and a hitting aspect from the Cubs. I expect the Cubs to actually. This is my one prediction. I think the Cubs sweep this series against San Francisco.
I don't know about all that. I do think the Cubs win this series. Johnny Cueto pitches tonight, which is a very good start to have your Game 1 against one of the best pitchers in baseball this year, and John Lester, possible Cy Young winner this year. I think the big thing for the Cubs, if the Giants can at least contain the bats of the Cubs, which they could, they have the pitching to do it. If they can contain them, it's to get the hits off these pitchers. Like Hendricks gives up hits, Hamill gives up hits. Arrieta's not himself this year, like we saw last year. So he's been giving up hits. He hasn't been striking out everybody like he did last year. So I feel like the big thing for the Giants, if they want to win this series, they have to get those starters out and out early. Don't let it come down to a close game and let Aroldis Chapman come in and just slam the door on you. If the Giants want to win this series, they have to come out hot. They can't wait. They get 5 innings to get them out of there. I feel like if their starters go to 7 innings, plus the Cubs are going to win like almost every time because their bullpen isn't great, but Aroldis Chapman himself will slam the door shut on any team really. He just strikes out everybody. He just blows it right by you. I think this is probably the best series of the division series. I think this is the best one. I think the Cubs win in 4. But I do think these are going to come down to late games, like I said, and the Cubs are either going to walk off or get a big hit late in the game. Because we've seen the Cubs struggle at times with good pitchers, and that's all we're going to see these playoffs. So it's the good pitchers, the aces. They're not going to see a lot of rookies anymore because they feasted on every rookie that they saw this year, just feasted on them. They're not going to see that in the playoffs anymore. They're going to see the Bumgarners, the Kershaws, Scherzers, all of them every time they play. So if the Giants can steal one at Wrigley, they could have a chance. They would have a legitimate chance to upset a World Series favorite in the Cubs.
Yeah, I think the one shot that the Giants have, the one thing that their pitchers do really well is they strike guys out, and the Cubs have been susceptible to striking out this year. So
yes,
I think that's the one shot that the Giants do have. The What If Sports Simulation, however, does agree with you. They do have the Cubs taking it in 4. There were two games where they had the Cubs scoring 15 or more runs. Those ones were ran 4 times each, and on average, the run total was 15 for 2 of the games for the Cubs. So with that, the championship series matchups that we have according to the What If simulation, we have Toronto going to Cleveland to start the ALCS, the best of 7 series, and then we have Los Angeles going to Chicago to start the NLCS matchup. It's kind of an opposite. It's 2 relatively smaller market teams in the AL versus the 2 biggest markets outside of New York that there is in the NL. Looking at it, Cleveland, Toronto, obviously from the outside looking in, that's a battle of pitching versus hitting. The pitching coming from Cleveland and the bats coming from Toronto. And then when you look at the Dodgers-Cubs series, it's just a battle of the best team in baseball versus the battle of guys. I mean, the Dodgers have been there before, most of their guys, at least in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think looking forward to that would be 2 great series. The What If Sports Simulation, however, since we're gonna go through it, so we don't have to go on a hypothetical matchup for us. The What If has Cleveland going to the World Series. They have them beating the Toronto Blue Jays in 5 games, having them taking that series 4-1. And
Oh.
then the same thing on the NL. The Cubs winning that series 4-1 over Los Angeles. They have the Cubs surrendering 12 runs in 4 games, so averaging only giving up 3 runs a game. Not too shabby. But looking forward to the World Series. The What If Sports World Series simulation goes Cleveland losing 2-8, so Chicago goes up 1-0. The next game, Game 2, Cleveland winning 11-9, and then the series would go to Cleveland, where the Cubs take Game 3, 12-4. So the Cubs have a 2-1 lead. Cleveland wins the next game 3-1, so the series is tied 2-2.
Going back and forth.
That's right. Chicago shuts out Cleveland in Game 5 to take a 3-2 lead. In Game 6, Cleveland wins 6-3.
Wow.
I was talking to Brock earlier. I was getting like sweaty and excited just pressing the simulate button or the play game button to simulate it. I was getting excited like I was watching it live.
You're getting a little sweaty.
Yeah, I had to change my shirt a couple times. No, but
that's
Game 7 in Wrigley. Bottom of the 11th. Ben Zobrist up to bat. 2 men on base. Ben Zobrist, walk off, World Series winning home run. Chicago Cubs win 10-7 to give the Cubs their first World Series title since 1908.
If it played out exactly like that, probably best World Series ever.
Bottom 11.
Ever.
Yep.
Ever.
Yeah.
I don't think there would be a question if it played out like that. That's the best World Series ever.
Yeah. Bottom 11, walk off, World Series winning home run. So if the World Series goes to a Game 7, everybody put your money on Ben Zobrist hitting that walk-off home run. You heard it here first. Chicago Cubs World Series champions. I know Dylan Hewsome will be a big fan of that result, but that's all.
I think he'd rather take a sweep
probably
instead of sweep wait until 11th inning.
Yeah, but that is all to be seen. Again, a huge shout out to What If Sports. Check them out on Twitter. Check out their website. I know that they run a ton of simulations for a variety of different games. Tune in next week for what our What If Sports Game of the Week will be. But let's move on to some football now.
Of course.
Packers had a bye week last week. It was another average week for us in our predictions, Brock.
Yeah.
I believe, let me look it up here. Brock, you went 6-8 last week. I went 10-4. So overall for the season, you're 35-25, or I'm 35-25. You are 36-24.
Wow.
So still really good, 12 games above. And that's with picking a couple of big upsets. I do know last week you did get the upset of the week with Atlanta destroying Carolina. So a big pickup there from you. Looking forward.
300 yards from Julio Jones helps too.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Looking forward to the Packers this week. A little bit of research I did. The Packers are going into their 9th year with McCarthy and Aaron. starting or playing and coaching together. Coming off of a bye week, if you just had to think back on it or to guess on it, how do you think the Packers are coming off of bye weeks?
At the last 9 years, I would say at least 7-2. I know we usually come back off of the bye week pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'd say 7-2.
Yeah, this is their 9th year, so 8 years.
8 years.
6-2.
Okay.
6-2 is the Packers' record. Last 2 years, complete opposites. Last year, they came off their bye week when they went to Denver, and we all know how that turned out. But 2 years ago, they came off their bye week and they played the Bears. That was the Aaron Rodgers 6 touchdowns in just over a half.
Yeah.
They won 55-14. The average score for the Packers coming off a bye week, 28-17. So pretty good.
Knock on wood a little bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So 6-2 in that time span. With that, Aaron Rodgers coming off of a bye week, 20 touchdowns to 3 interceptions in 8 games. So
that's pretty good, but we can't live in the past. And this Giants team, this Giants defense is very good, especially their improvements on the D line and their secondary is pretty good. We saw last week Minnesota dominated the front line on defense, especially. If our D line can play like it has been playing the last few weeks, I mean, I don't see us losing this game. But if they don't, they give Eli time, and those 3 dynamic wide receivers of Cruz, Shepard, and Beckham Jr., it could be a long day, especially if our corners play like they've been playing, and like you've been saying the last couple weeks. If our corners play like that, it could be a long day.
Yeah, I know. I saw the update. Demarius Randall, I believe, is questionable heading into this game. One of the cornerbacks is questionable heading into this game. Demarius Randall questionable. Don't really have a reason why. But Sam Shields is already ruled out for this game again. I think the Packers' run defense obviously has been one of, if not the best in the NFL. The Giants are down to their third string running back. I think that the run defense is going to continue to be stellar this week. You mentioned
Dom Capers can't be conservative. He has to be aggressive. I'm sick of seeing the teams pass all over him because he's just letting the quarterback have plenty of time. And it's the NFL. If any quarterback in this league has more than 4 seconds, chances are they're going to find the open guy and release a dime and put it over 2 defenders, do something amazing with it, which we shouldn't be surprised by because they are in the NFL for a reason. So we need to pressure Eli. We've seen him plenty of times before. We get pressure on him, he's going to throw a duck. When he's throwing them, his balls have been coming out looking like Peyton throwing ducks.
Watching the game last week, you could tell, and this is the hashtag Carlos moment of the week. Eli looked scared in the backfield.
Pressure him.
He didn't want to take a hit. He's susceptible to taking easy sacks as opposed to you don't want to compare him to Cam or to Aaron Rodgers, where if there's pressure, they're going to either step up a little bit more or they're going to wiggle their way out of it a little bit. Mm-hmm. He will take an easy sack. I know it's just like Peyton.
Peyton.
There's been a lot of controversy this week surrounding Odell Beckham Jr. I don't want to get into him from his off the field antics too much because I think we both agree that he's going to go off at some point this season. He's not going to let all the off the field stuff continue to bother him as much. He's an emotional guy. Now, I agree with a lot of what's being said about him. He needs to calm it down a little bit. But I think the only reason why he needs to calm it down a little bit is because he's getting flags. If he's not getting flags, let him do what he wants to do. If he's gonna get fined for doing something, it's his money. If he's not getting the flags for it, it's none of your business. That's one of the big things you always hear. Like, don't bring up in the NFL is people talking about other people's money. Don't comment on what he's doing unless he's hurting the team on the field, which I believe
right
last game it happened once, obviously, which hurt. But unless it's affecting the team on the field, let him be. I know a lot of people are predicting him to have a big game this weekend. It seems like it's one or the other. People are projecting him to have a big game against a beat-up secondary for the Packers, who've given up a lot of yards to receivers who, quite frankly, aren't as talented as him. Either that, or people are projecting him to do very little this week. What do you think? First of all, what's the key to stopping him if you're the Packers, and what do you think his stat line looks like this week?
The key to stopping him is help. You got to put two people, at least shadow him with two people. Don't let him catch the ball in open space and let him run with it. You're going to have to be in his hip pocket, make the play right there. He catches the ball, he's down. I can deal with that. No yards after the catch. Yeah. I think that's the big thing. He can have 12 catches for 120 yards. That's only 10 yards a catch. It's the yards after the catch which is going to hurt them. I think he will bounce back a little bit. I think he'll have at least 5 or 6 catches for 80 yards. He'll have a solid game, but we both know with the Packers, if we shut down, we don't necessarily have to shut down the main guy. It's one of those guys that isn't the main guy that's going to tear us apart.
Yeah.
Like we've seen Marvin Jones. He's not, at the time he wasn't the guy. It was more focus was on Golden Tate and Eric Ebron, and they just let him go and have 200 yards. Oh, Stephon Diggs, I mean, he didn't have anything big before that game, and
hasn't had since. Really.
I mean, he's had okay games. They're trying to get him the ball. They're trying to force him to the ball now because he is a playmaker. We didn't give anything up really to Allen Robinson against the Jags. It was all like Marcus Lee had a decent game and Julius Thomas and Allen Hurns. So this game, I think, because so much focus is going to be on Odell, it's going to be a Sterling Shepard show or a Victor Cruz show, which we have already seen this year, so it's not going to come to any surprise if they have a good game. But I think Odell will have a better game overall. I don't think he'll have an outstanding stat line like Julio did, going from 1 catch for 16 yards to 12 catches for 300 yards. I don't think that will happen, but I think he will have a bounce back game overall.
Yeah, I know Mike Daniels commented on it. I don't know if he was. I'm assuming he was asked about it, about what it's going to take to stop him or what it's going to take to stop the Giants. And I think what I saw was Mike Daniels' response was, of course he's going to get inside Odell Beckham's head, but Mike Daniels likes to get inside everybody's head. So I think it's something where teams and the Packers have to watch out for. It seems like it's yes, you can get inside his head, but emotion does fuel him, similar to Dez Bryant, where you can make him angry all you want, but if you make him angry to the point where he's going to go off, you just have to watch out with that.
I get it that they want to get inside of each other's head and play to their weaknesses. That's part of football. You pick out somebody's weakness, you're going to attack it. So, I mean, don't fall into that same category, which if he says something, we don't need our guy getting flagged for it. Let him get the flags all you want. If he hits you, don't hit him back.
Yeah,
that's the thing. They have to have that restraint because first person strikes, it's always the second guy that gets caught. So
exactly.
The Packers have to be smart. I think Mike McCarthy and Dom Capers will be like, hey, cut the crap. Like, don't be hitting people late. Don't be I get it. You're going to have the trash talk and whatnot, but don't be getting those penalties. Over the last few weeks, we have been pretty good on not having penalties. So the minute we start having those 15-yard penalties, it's going to change the game, and it could hurt the Packers if they fall into that mind games that Odell likes to play.
Yeah. Let's move into our predictions for the week, so that we can save some time for a new segment that we have coming up. One of mine and Brock's favorite, our random facts of the week. And I think, Brock, I believe you have a on this day.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So let's move into our predictions for the week. As usual, let's get your upset pick of the week as we're going.
Mm-hmm.
First game could be a good game, could be one of those blowout games. Who knows? We have Houston traveling to Minnesota. Minnesota is favored in that game at home.
See, I think Houston will win. I think Sam Bradford's going to make the mistake this week. He has been pretty good with the ball over the last few weeks. I think he's going to make a mistake. They still can't run the ball. Texans are pretty good, very good against the run. The defense has been very opportunistic. But I have Texans winning this game. It's going to be a close game. It's going to come down late again. I think it won't be a blowout. I think it will be close. The one thing is Brock Osweiler cannot turn over the ball. That's the thing. The main thing is he has, I think, 6 interceptions in 4 games. So he has to cut down that and throw with efficiency. He has to find. I know he loves Will Fuller. Will Fuller is a very good talent. He has to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. Yep. He's the touchdown man. You got to get it to him. So spread the ball out. Don't turn over the ball, and Houston wins that game.
Yeah, I was looking back at our notes from previous shows, and I think this is the 3rd straight week that I was going to pick against Minnesota, starting off with the Packers. Last week we both picked the Giants. This week I was going to pick Houston. I honestly don't know if the Vikings are going to lose at home this week. They could put me or you in at quarterback, and with that they have a great home field advantage.
They really
right
do.
Now.
That field is very impressive.
Yeah. And you mentioned opportunistic defenses. The Vikings are an opportunistic defense, both picking the ball off and forcing fumbles and recovering. So I am going with Minnesota at home this week.
Is that your wife's family getting to you already?
No.
Picking the Minnesota.
No, thankfully I haven't heard anything since they beat the Packers. Thankfully her family's more of a they know I'm a Packers fan, so they're gonna try and talk smack, but they're not really sports fans. But they're like if the Minnesota team wins, I'm gonna give the Wisconsin boy a lot to hear about it. So
yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, when they try to talk about it, I can shut them down pretty quickly with just that they don't know sports very well. But the next game, two of the worst teams in football, I guess, is the probably the easy way to put it. We have Tennessee going to Miami. The Dolphins are favored in this game.
Well, I might switch my pick, but I don't think I will because it's going to be a mud bowl down there in Miami. I have the Tennessee Titans in this game. I just don't like Miami. I think Tannehill is just gone downhill. Any Dolphin fan can blame me. I feel like I am a quarterback killer. Every time I pick a quarterback in fantasy, they suck. A couple of years ago, I picked Josh Freeman as my quarterback. He's not in the league anymore. Last year, I had Tannehill. You've seen how that played out last year and so far this year. That's why I will not pick Aaron Rodgers in fantasy. This year I picked Jameis. So Tampa Bay fans.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I do.
I agree.
I have Tennessee. I just don't. I don't think Miami's a very good team.
Yeah, I think uh, with with the weather down there, it's going to be which team can run the ball better.
Yes.
The Titans aren't a team to. They're not a East and West running team. They don't go outside. They have two guys who run north and south. They get downhill and they get going. And DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. I think Tennessee wins this game.
Mm-hmm.
The next game is the return, as I'm going to be calling it, the return of Tom Brady. New England goes to Cleveland. They're 10.5-point favorites. I know you're a big Terrell Pryor fan. I know I know New England's coming off a shutout loss. But New England gets Tom Brady back. They get Rob Ninkovich back as an edge rusher. New England wins this game, and Tom Brady throws for at least 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, yeah. He couldn't pick.
Not going with the upset.
No, not this week. I just think Tom Brady is just going to tear them apart. I don't think this game will be close. New England's just going to roll over the Browns. But you know what? The Browns can make it a game. I could be completely wrong. They could. New England seems to sputter against these weaker opponents sometimes. So don't be surprised if Cleveland makes it a game and Cleveland does Cleveland things and they lose.
Yeah, I heard a stat the other day that the last time they faced in Cleveland, I believe the Browns beat the Patriots. I believe that was 2011 or 2013. And since that time, Bill Belichick has signed 13 Cleveland Browns players that were on that team.
Yep. He has 13 players that were on the 2013 Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said, I think Tom Brady goes for at least 3 touchdown passes. Hopefully, a couple of those to Gronk. I've been rolling with him in fantasy, even though.
But he get you a solid 1 point last week.
I think he's got 1 point all season. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
The next game, the Jets coming off another loss. Pittsburgh coming off a trouncing win against the Chiefs. The game's in Pittsburgh. I think that this one is not even close again. I think Big Ben goes off again. Antonio Brown, another player who's been getting fined for absolutely ridiculous reasons. I tweeted out a link the other day. Take a look at it. It's about just how the NFL, people call it the no fun league. It's starting to get even worse.
Yeah.
But I do have Pittsburgh winning this game.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, obvious reasons that you already stated. Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell is back. He had a big first game back. I expect him to keep that dominance up. So that offense is a 3-headed monster with Ben, Bell, and Antonio Brown. So it's
absolutely, with
that defense, Darrelle Revis hasn't been himself. So I think Pittsburgh wins this game pretty handily.
Yeah. What could be one of the better games of the weekend, possibly. A sneaky one. The Washington Redskins are going to Baltimore to play the Ravens. The Ravens are favored in this game. I think that Baltimore, coming off that loss against Oakland, I think they come back and they have a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore has 2 wide receivers who are getting up there in age but can still produce, in Steve Smith Sr. and Mike Wallace. I think Baltimore wins this game. Rashad Breeland out again for the Redskins, their second cornerback. So I think they take advantage of whoever Josh Norman isn't covering.
Yeah.
Plus, Josh Norman's not known to have top-end speed. Yes, Mike Wallace has lost a step, but still one of the faster receivers in the NFL. So I'm going with Baltimore to win this game.
Yeah, as am I. You already stated everything that I was going to say, so I'll just keep it short and sweet. Ravens win. I think it'll be close because Washington has put up points the last couple weeks against pretty good teams. So I still have Baltimore winning by at least a touchdown.
All right, a team coming off of a bye, the Philadelphia Eagles, Wentzellmania, however other nicknames Eagles fans already have for Carson Wentz. They go to Detroit. The undefeated Eagles taking on the Lions. Philadelphia, one of 3 road teams favored this week. Who do you got?
Yeah, I have Philly in this game. I'm gonna ride the Wentz train, whatever they call it. I think Detroit's defense isn't very good, and if they don't pressure him, he's gonna tear them apart, just like any other quarterback. But he's showed a lot of poise in the pocket when he is getting pressure, which is very impressive from a young quarterback from a small school. So he's shown a lot of maturity and he looks really smart up there under center and shotgun, wherever he's doing. He looks like he already knows everybody's playbook in the league, and he is just calling out all the shots. And I think the whole team bought into him and is just along with the ride and take him where Wentz goes, they go. So I think they go into Detroit and win.
Yeah, I think I agree. I have Philly winning this game. I think it's going to be the defense. What they did to the Steelers. They show that they can shut down a team. I think that they have a repeat performance of that this week in Detroit. The next game, 2 of the most lackluster defenses in the NFL. We have Brian Hoyer's Chicago Bears coming off their first win of the week, going to Indianapolis to take on Andrew Luck and the Colts. I'll tell you, I am going with the Colts in this game. I think Andrew Luck continues to roll after a solid second half of last week's game in London. I think the Bears, they don't have enough weapons. Kevin White out again, is on the IR with a lower leg injury. So I do have the Colts winning this game against the Bears.
As do I. This isn't very fun since we're picking all the same teams. But I do have Indy winning this game. The Colts, their running game is pretty good with Frank Gore. Frank Gore, the ageless wonder, is running the ball pretty well and scoring. So Bears defense has been suspect this year. Their offense suspect. Colts defense, I think, will do enough to win, and Andrew Luck will find the holes in this Bears secondary, and Ty and Moncrief will be open, and he will spread the ball around and just light up this Bears defense this week.
Definitely. So this next game, we're going to talk about this one. We're going to go a little bit rapid fire. We have the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Denver. I know it's been a huge debate, the immovable object versus the unstoppable force. Great offense so far versus a great defense. Denver is favored. I am going to go with Denver. I do think it's going to be a little bit more of a high-scoring game. I do think Matt Ryan has a pretty good game still. However, it's more because of Atlanta's defense. Denver has showed that they can score even with Trevor Siemian, even with Paxton Lynch.
Yeah.
So I do have Denver winning this game.
Yeah, as do I. I think, like we said, I don't think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be in the 20s because we still don't know who's going to start at quarterback. Yes, they can score with them, but it's still an inexperience. I think one of the biggest things this week is going to be on Atlanta's offensive side is if Tevin Coleman cannot play he does have a sickle cell disease and might not be able to play. I know he wants to play. He said he's going to play, but if he cannot be effective like he has been so far this season, it could really slow down that offensive attack of the Falcons. They could become more one-dimensional, and when the Denver defense knows you're going to throw it, it's no fly zone for a reason. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be one of the funner games to watch this week, definitely. But I have Denver winning.
Yeah, you mentioned Tevin Coleman with that sickle cell trait. I believe it was Ryan Clark a couple years ago who went there and tried to play and suffered from it, to say the least. So hopefully, I mean, just for his sake, I'm hoping that he doesn't play. Why risk it for one game? But he's a competitor. He's going to want to get out there. But this next game is my upset pick of the week. We have the Bills going to Los Angeles. Bills coming off a big win. Los Angeles. I'm going to actually read a tweet here. This will be the last game that we talk about. We were actually in contact with Liz Habib. She is a Fox Sports or Fox Sports LA anchor out in Hollywood. We got a hold of her, was asking her a little bit about about LA and how fans are receptive of teams out there, whether she thinks, or from what she's heard, do the fans think the Rams are for real? Are they cautious about getting on the bandwagon too soon? To paraphrase, she just said they're definitely excited, but the jury is still out. They're still getting used to the fact that they have an NFL team in town. So it's some of the younger fans and some of the not necessarily football diehard fans that are still getting used to it. But then always the hardcore fans are always hopeful. So I think it's more of the hardcore fans are thinking this team could be for real. But the jury is still out in Los Angeles. Again, a huge shout out to her for getting back to us with that question. But again, Buffalo, I do have them going to LA, coming off a big game. I think Tyrod Taylor has a big game. My upset pick of the week.
Yeah, Rex Ryan has done a pretty good job after firing his offensive coordinator. But I think this was a tough game to pick because Buffalo's come from the East Coast to the West Coast. So I think that's the main reason why I picked LA to win. I think they finally win at home, and keep a good mojo for this season. Hopefully they can start off 4-1. So I do have LA in this one.
All right. Next game we have the Chargers going all the way to Oakland. San Diego goes to Oakland. Oakland is favored in this game. I do have Oakland winning this game. I think it's going to be another high-scoring game. Two teams who struggled on defense. Melvin Gordon has had a great start to this season, but for as good of a start he's had, Michael Crabtree and Derek Carr have been one of the better tandems in the NFL so far in the young season.
Yeah, I agree. Oakland, I like what I've seen out of Carr. He's spreading the ball out. Michael Crabtree's been reliable this year. Amari Cooper's always a factor. Walford at tight end has been a pleasant surprise for them. Murray's been decent out of the backfield. So I think Oakland takes this game pretty easily.
All right, next game, the third and final road team who's favored this week. I am going with them. We have the Cincinnati Bengals heading to Dallas. Interesting fact, the Alabama Crimson Tide have won more games in AT&T Stadium since the beginning of last year than the Dallas Cowboys have. Saying something, Cowboys struggle at home. Tyler Eifert was scheduled to play this game after coming back from a back injury, but he tweaked his ankle, so he's out again. I think Cincinnati takes this game in Dallas.
Yeah, as do I. I don't think not Denver. Dallas has anybody that can guard AJ Green. So it's. I think Cincinnati's going to take this game. They found their running game, their running attack last week to at least consistently run the ball. I think against Dallas, and AJ Green once again I think is going to tear up that Dallas defense.
All right, we have the Monday night game next. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Carolina Panthers. I'm going with Tampa Bay if they're going to make the playoffs like I predicted to begin the year, like we predicted to begin the year.
Mm-hmm.
They got to start somewhere. Carolina just cut they just cut a starting cornerback. I think Jameis to Mike Evans, Jameis to Vincent Jackson is a reoccurring theme Monday night. I have Tampa Bay upsetting the Panthers.
Yeah, that is my upset pick of the week. I do have Tampa winning that game. Cam Newton is still in question if he's going to play. He hasn't practiced all week. He's still under the concussion protocol. There's a lot of speculation that he still had concussion symptoms since the Denver game, because since we all know he took a lot of shots there, and then he was strolling into the end zone last week and took a big shot right to the face. So if he can't play, it's definitely, I think, Tampa's game to lose. Derek Anderson is a capable quarterback, but he's no Cam. He can't affect the game like Cam can. But I do have Tampa winning that game.
All right. And the typical voiceover here, we go to the Sunday night game and the Green Bay Packers. The game is at Lambeau. We welcome the Giants into town. We already talked about the keys to the game, how to stop Odell. We talked about getting the pressure on the quarterback. It does look like Clay Matthews is going to play this game. Packers slowly and surely getting back healthy, coming off of the bye week. Let's go usual. Let's get your stat line from the game and your score prediction, Brock.
I have Green Bay Packers winning this. This was a very tough game to pick because my heart says Packers, obviously. My head was thinking Odell's going to go off. He's going to have that game against us because our corners have been struggling. But I think overlooking everything, seeing that we did get healthier, I should say. I think Green Bay takes this game 31-21. Eddie Lacy has over 100 yards and a touchdown. I think our running game is improving week after week. I hope we can attack with a running game so it opens up for Jordy. I think our offense is going to have quite the big game again, as we did against Detroit. Detroit really, for stat line, Aaron Rodgers didn't have a huge game, yards-wise, touchdowns-wise, clearly. I think Aaron Rodgers throws for over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. One to Richard Rodgers. I think with Jared Cook being out, Aaron Rodgers is very familiar with the other Rodgers. So I think they're going to connect on at least one, if not 2, of his touchdowns.
All right. One thing of note that we didn't mention, the club is off for Jeff Janis, who I believe shares a birthday with you, Brock.
Does he really?
I was looking this up earlier, June 24th, right?
Hey, that's a good day.
I think Jeff Janis hopefully comes back and makes an impact. I know the Packers are deep at receiver. We talked about hometown favorite Jared Abbrederis not getting much action this season because they are so deep. My prediction 31-17. My prediction is that Trevor Davis scores at least 1 touchdown. Not really saying how. It could be punt return, kick return, receiver. But Trevor Davis touchdown, first career this season, and 5+ sacks for the Packers defense. We mentioned getting the pressure is always key for the Packers. I think Clay comes back after resting for 2 weeks. The Packers win this game 31-17. And before we head out, you have a on this day for us, right?
Yes, I do. On this day in 1981, I'm going to take it back to baseball and the Milwaukee Brewers. In 1981, on this day, October 7th, the New York Yankees beat the Milwaukee Brewers 5-3 in the first Eastern Division Championship. So a little knowledge there is, I like to throw in a Wisconsin fact. It happened to be the Brewers' loss, but it being in the Eastern Division Championship, and it's interesting to see how much the MLB has changed since then in 1981.
Yeah.
So,
you know this, I know this. We love it when we have the random facts of the day. Sometimes we'll just kid around and be like, teams who travel to the East Coast on a Thursday night are 6-7 when their quarterback throws for 300 yards, but their running back only has 50 yards or less. If their team name starts with an A.
Yeah.
I'm not going that insane. However, I do have 3 random stats. Teams since 1960 are 3-5 when their quarterbacks attempt 65 or more passes in a game. So it's only happened 8 times since 1960 where quarterbacks throwing the ball 65 plus times.
Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees.
Phillip Rivers against the Packers 2 years ago.
Drew Brees.
I don't remember if he was one of them or not. I believe Drew Bledsoe was one of them for the Patriots back in the day. Another one here. There have been 7 times a quarterback has thrown for 300 yards, thrown for 5+ interceptions, with 0 touchdowns in the same game. Again,
Jesus.
300 yards, 5 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. One time, a team has still won their game. I believe it was the Falcons with Matt Ryan throwing for 300+, 5 interceptions and no touchdowns in a game.
Wow.
And then finally, this has happened 9 times. A running back has had 100 yards rushing with 10 receptions in a game. The reason why I brought up that last one is Darren Sproles, I think, has an opportunity to do that this week against Detroit. Ryan Matthews has been struggling this year. Darren Sproles busted out a long catch and run last week of 74 yards. So 9 times a running back has rushed for 100 yards and had 10+ catches in a game.
Matt Forte.
I don't think he was one of them. I think the last time it happened was I don't remember, but I don't think Forte was one of them. I know Marshall Faulk was one of them. I know a lot of them happened back in the 80s and 90s.
Wow, that's actually very surprising.
Yeah, so with that, you guys can tweet at us, hashtag random sports fact. Tweet at us at Jock Talk WINC. Post to us on Facebook, facebook.com/Jock Talk WINC. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tweet with us along with this week's games. We're going to be live tweeting Saturday during the college games, a good slate of college football games.
If I have electricity.
If Brock has electricity. Thoughts out to everybody on the East Coast. Hopefully I'm not too bad for you guys down there.
Yeah, your little side chick Nicole's coming too.
Oh yeah, I saw that one there. Yeah. You got anything else, Brock?
I don't. It's going to be a fun week, especially with the baseball playoffs starting. So
NBA preseason is up and running.
Yes, it is. NBA starts in less than 20 days.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Shit, I might be able to live broadcast from the Charlotte Hornets game. It's looking like I'm going to be able to go to the Charlotte Hornets hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves on December 3rd.
Nice.
So I might be
Facebook
able to.
Live.
I might have to Facebook Live a little bit of the game, so everyone can see a couple of young stars in Andrew Wiggins, Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. You know I have them winning that game.
Let's say don't mention the home team at all, but
Who they
mark
have,
that on your
Kemba?
calendar. Kemba, that's right. What was it, December 2nd you said?
I think it's the 3rd.
December 3rd. So I'll mark that on my calendar. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. But with that, thank you guys in advance for listening. We will talk to you guys next week sometime. Brock, we'll see you next time.
Go Pack, go.